Hi everyone. So today we are going to be talking about multiple choice single answer and multiple choice multiple answer. This is the reading part. We will be presented the options in multiple choice single answer, multiple choice multiple answers, but the most important thing will be to understand the context and understand what our prompt is and what our options are. So I will start sharing my screen now. Let's get into this. This is a very exciting part of reading, and it's quite technical as well as fill in the blanks was. It's quite technical. So let me share the agenda with you. Let's look at the agenda. Here we've got multiple choice single answer. We are going to introduce the multiple choice single answer. We'll talk about strategies before reading and after reading, and we'll talk about types of questions. We'll talk about how to predict the vocabulary, and then we'll see the strategies in action. We'll apply those strategies that we've learned and how to apply them. I'll show you step by step. And then we'll briefly touch on the scoring, and we'll do the full practice. And I want you to do the practice on your own, but I'll show you how I would do that as well, so you can follow along. Then we are going to look at multiple choice, multiple answer. We'll have a little bit of introduction. We'll have a warm-up activity, and we'll touch on scoring, and then we'll do the full practice. All right. So let's get into it. I'm going to introduce you to the multiple choice single answer. There will be a question that will be presented to you, or a sentence that you will have to complete. Okay, so there it comes in two different ways. It could be presented to you as a question, or it can be presented to you as a sentence that you will have to complete. So you'll have to read the prompt very, very carefully. Prompt is your question. In terms of keywords, you will have to focus on keywords in the prompt. So I will show you how you focus on the keywords in the prompt once we get into the details. So let's talk about strategies now. So in terms of strategies, before you read the passage that is presented to you, you should read the prompt very, very carefully, because that's what tells you what information you should be looking for. It will set the tone for you. So you should not just reading the passage just to gain the information. You're specifically reading the passage to gain that information. So question is super, super important. Understanding the question, read it very, very carefully. If you haven't understood the question, you're going to be looking for information that is unnecessary. So I will keep emphasizing on this point that reading and understanding the question is super important. Then you will skim the responses quickly, and understanding the responses is super important as well, because if you don't understand the responses, you would not be able to scan those words in the passage. So while you start reading, so once you've done those two steps, you will start reading the actual passage. And once you start reading the actual passage, you'll read the text very carefully, and you already have a mindset of what words you should be aiming for and what words you should be looking for in the text. Then we identify the main idea. So it could be if the prompt is asking you to identify the main idea, you can identify the main idea and you can get the answer. And you should be looking for the supporting points that supports the main idea. All right. Do not focus too much on the unfamiliar words. Obviously, these are academic articles, and sometimes you will come across really, really technical words. Do not worry too much if you don't know the meaning of the words. You try to guess from the context. So understanding the context will really help you to understand any unfamiliar words. All right. After reading the text and after you have found your answer, read the response options and select the correct one to eliminate the wrong one. So there are two strategies basically to correct getting the answers right. One is to eliminate the wrong answer. So the text will tell you if the answer is wrong, or if the answers are not given in the text. Those ones you can eliminate, and you will select the correct ones if the text actually have that answer to be correct. Okay. Check your response. So you will check your response as if it's specific, read a relevant part of the or general quick and quickly reread. Okay. So what happens is that you will be given options. You read the options and you see that in the passage, that is the specific thing. In terms of general, obviously, if it says, describe the writer's opinion, or what is the topic, or what is the gist of the passage, that will be the general. So you will have to reread correctly, quickly, and I will show you how it's all done in practice. But once you have selected your answers, you go and reread the passage to make sure that it all makes sense. Okay. And if you can't in multiple choice single answer, I will say to you, if you don't know the answer, if you still are unsure, please select one option. It could be your chance to scoring, because there is no negative scoring in multiple choice single answer, so you can still select it. Here I'm advising you to select the answer if you have to guess. Okay. All right, let's look at the first activity. And I'm going to show you what types of prompts you can expect in your questions. So you can get some prompts such as what questions, like what, where, and we're going to talk about them in detail here. So you can get a question asking you who did something. Who would mean, who would mean you're looking for a person, right? So if you see who in your question prompt, you should be looking for, you should know that you're looking for a person. What would represent a thing, where would represent a place, why would represent you're looking for a reason, when would represent you're looking for a time that, if something happened in that particular time, how you're looking for a description, and which would suggest that you're looking for a thing. Okay. Now, two types of prompts that you can get is why questions. So, what, when, where, why, and how also you can get, and then complete the sentence. So sometimes you'll get a question, and I'll show you in a minute how it looks like. You'll get a question where it says you need to complete the sentence. Let's look at why questions, for example. According to this text, how do, and I include how in why questions as well, how do excise taxes usually differ from tariffs? For example, a description showing differences in what ways, right? So the question is, how do excise taxes usually differ from tariffs? Excise taxes is one thing. How do they differ from tariffs is the other thing. For example, so the example here, we are looking for a description showing the differences and in what ways that these two differ. Okay, that's what you're looking for. If you see what, for example, this next one, you've got a question, what factors were involved in the disparity between the calendars of Britain and Europe in 17th century? We are looking for things and causes, aren't we? In what factors were involved? What factors were involved in the disparity? There were disparity between calendars of Britain and Europe. There was a difference between these two calendars in 17th century. What were the things that were causing that disparity? What were the causes of that disparity? Okay. So the next question here is, which of the following factors are consistent with the theory of X-ray crystallography? Here, we are looking for things or processes that were consistent with the theory of. Okay, let's look at another question here. Which of the following are facts specifically concerning the ethnicity of the citizens of Botswana? Which of the following? So we're looking for the description of fact. Which of the following facts? We're looking for descriptions of the facts that are concerning, specifically concerning the ethnicity, which are about the ethnicity of citizens of Botswana. Why was the fall in the crime rate particularly surprising? For example, reason, or because we're looking why. When we see why in questions such as this one, why was the fall in crime rate particularly surprising? We're looking for a reason behind that. Complete the sentence. So now we're going to talk about complete the sentence questions. To complete the sentence, the major division of Syx people of North America are, and complete the sentence. So we're looking for what here, right? What the major divisions of Syx people of North America are. So names of the divisions. We're looking for names of the division. When we read the passage, we're going to be specifically looking and scanning for the names of division. The main idea contained in the text is the main idea. So we're looking for the main idea. When we read the passage, we're looking for the main idea. We're looking for the topic. We're looking for the gist. We're looking for the theme of the main idea. According to the passage, significant human impact on the Tasmanian environment first began. According to the passage, a significant human impact on the Tasmanian environment first began when? So we're looking we're looking for a time, isn't it? It's the same as we have to complete the sentence, but it's looking for the time, where the question here, the word here is when, right? So we're looking for a period, we're looking for a date, we're looking for a time of event. When did this happen? When exactly this happened? So we will be scanning that in our passage when we read it. So again, you can get two types of questions here. You can get WAH questions, and you can read all of these questions. I've just given you, what are the things that you look for. Complete the sentence. Again, you can get things like that. You can also think of in terms of WAH questions, what are you looking for? Example, the major division of Syx people of North America, are you looking for the name of the divisions? So you can pause the video here, try to read these questions and think of, what type of information you're looking for, okay? All right, we'll keep moving. We'll talk about, now we'll talk about predicting the vocabulary. Okay, so for example, look at this prompt here. We've got 1% present indicator of climate change in Australia is, what type of vocabulary are we looking for? One present indicator of climate change, present indicator. Indicator is a sign, isn't it? So we are looking at vocabulary such as, rising temperature, drought, flooding, desertification, and things like that. We need to scan for these words, these vocabulary in the passage when we read it out. All right, so we're going to do this passage, and we're going to be looking at this particular vocabulary. So first of all, always start with reading the prompt. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to read the prompt here. The prompt here says, one present indicator of climate change in Australia is, and then we're going to read out the options quickly. But quickly doesn't mean that you don't understand them. You need to understand them as well. We've got environmental activists, gas emissions, carbon dioxide, and drought. Now, just by reading it without even reading the passage, I'm thinking in my mind, the present indicator is a sign of climate change. So if I look at this indicator, I can say, okay, the climate is actually changing in Australia, or all over the world. Environmental activists, if I look at environmental activists, it's not an indicator. They are the ones who are identifying the indicators, right? So in my mind, I'm thinking that can't be a correct answer. Gas emissions could be an indicator. Carbon dioxide could be an indicator. Drought can be an indicator. But those two, in my mind, I'm thinking gas emissions and carbon dioxide actually could be the causes, not the sign of indicator that could be causing the climate change. So even without reading the passage, I have kind of identified that drought could be a possible answer here, but I'm going to read it out. Every day, millions of lights and computers are left on in deserted offices, apartments, and houses. Environmental activists say that simply switching them off could cut Sydney's greenhouse gas emissions by 5% over the next year. Per capita, Australia is one of the world's largest producers of carbon dioxide and other gases that many scientists believe are helping to warm the Earth's atmosphere, causing climate upset. A long-standing drought and serious water shortages in Australia have focused much attention on climate change. Some experts warn higher temperatures could leave this nation of 20 million people at the mercy of more severe droughts and devastating tropical cyclones. Okay. So if you read this last paragraph, it says a long-standing drought and serious water shortages in Australia have focused much attention on climate change. Why people have started thinking about climate change, in other words, it's because we have seen these long-standing droughts and serious water shortages. So water shortages is one indicator as well, and we've got drought, but water shortages is not in our options here, so we can't really choose that. But the keywords and the objective of this activity is to identify keywords in the text. So keywords is climate upset, a long-standing drought, serious water shortages, higher temperatures, devastating tropical cyclones. All of these are indicators, isn't it? But we find only one here to be correct in the options, and we will go with drought. The other two, and I think next screen, you can see we are going to analyze the options. And how do we analyze the options? On the left, you can see environmental activists. That's incorrect because these are people seeking to prevent the climate change, right? Or these are the ones who are analyzing. These are the ones who analyze the climate change, right? Gas emissions is incorrect because these are one of the causes of climate change, not the indicator. Carbon dioxide is incorrect because it is one of the causes of climate change, not the indicator. Drought is correct as it is presented in the text as one of the indicators of climate change. So that's how you will analyze. You will eliminate the wrong ones, which do not make sense. And that's not what the question is. So if you understand the question, it will be easier for you to understand which ones you can eliminate and which ones could be the correct one. Here, we were looking for the indicator. Super important. We understand the question. If you don't understand the question, we might be looking for something else. Really analyze, spend time on understanding the question. All right, we'll touch on the scoring now. So it actually tests your ability to analyze, interpret, and evaluate a short reading text on an academic subject. Again, academic subject is going to be either from science, arts, history, culture, all these kind of things, business. So if you read the articles, and in the end, I will talk about, the importance of reading articles. It's very important because that's going to improve your chances. No credit for no response or incorrect, so always attempt. So if you think that you don't know the answer, it's worth a try because you can score a mark if it's correct. If you guessed something correctly, you can still mark. There is no negative marking, so you don't want to lose your points. It only affects the reading score. So as you know, there are in communicative skills, we've got reading, writing, speaking, and listening. It only affects your reading score. All right, we're going to do practice now. So this is practice time. So I want you to pause the video here, apply all the skills that we talked about, and I showed you how to do one. But I want you to do this one on your own. Pause the video here, read the prompt very carefully, understand it, read the options, understand them, and then look for the options in the text. All right, we're back. I hope you had a chance to look at it on your own. And now I will show you how I will approach this, and you can follow along. So I'm going to read the question first. What point is the writer making in this paragraph? The question is what point? That's the key word here. The writer is making in the paragraph. So he's making a point, and that's what I need to look for. But we have been given 4 options, and we know he could be making these 4 points. So I'm going to read all of these 4 points and see if it's correct in our paragraph that has been presented to us. Motivation is worth more than intelligence in learning. Language can be effectively learned through play. There is no single best method for learning. and teachers should regularly change their methods. So the first, if I were to analyze all of these without even reading the paragraph, were to analyze all these options, the first one says motivation is worth more than intelligence in learning. So it's saying motivation is more important, intelligence not that important in learning. I mean, it's not saying not that important, just saying the motivation is more important than intelligence in learning. Okay. Okay, we'll find out if that's true. Language can be effectively learned through play. So it's saying that, you know, you can learn language by playing maybe some games. I'm just thinking I might be looking for that information in the paragraph. Then we've got, there is no single best method for learning. So it might be saying, you know, there might be more, there is more than one method of learning. So what, I mean, there's no single best way. I should be looking for that information in the paragraph, and then teachers should regularly change their methods. So I should be thinking, does it say in paragraph that I'm about to read, where it says that teachers should be changing their methods. So I'll start reading the paragraph now, and I'll see, I've already understood all of the options. Now I will be reading it so that everything will make sense to me. If it doesn't make sense, I will eliminate them, eliminate the options that are not either not here in the paragraph or they're incorrect. The approach to methodology of learning and teaching has to be comprehensive, presenting all options in an explicit and transparent way. So it kind of gives me the approach to methodology of learning and teaching has to be comprehensive. It says comprehensive, kind of giving me an idea that there is no single best way of learning, method of learning. But I'll read down, presenting all options in an explicit and transparent way and avoid advocacy or dogmatism. So it kind of gives me an idea that, you know, there has to be more than one method of learning, because it should be comprehensive. That's what it says. It has been our fundamental methodological principle that the methods to be employed in language learning, teaching, and research are those considered to be most effective in reaching the objectives agreed in the light of the needs of the individual learners in their social context. So it's basically saying that research and teaching has been known to be the most effective ways of learning. Effectiveness is contingent on the motivations and characteristics of the learners, as well as the nature of the human and material resources which can be brought into play. So it says that, you know, effectiveness is contingent on motivation as well as the characteristics of the learners, and intelligence would be part of the characteristics. So it doesn't say that motivation is more, so I can eliminate the first one because it doesn't say that it's worth more than intelligence in learning. So it doesn't say that. I can eliminate that. Language can be effectively learned through play. It doesn't mention it can be brought into play. That doesn't mean that it can be learned through play. So that I can eliminate that as well. I didn't see anywhere. And so I'm going back to my options and analyzing them again. Now that I've read the passage, I can analyze my options. So that's not correct. That's not been given in the passage. The third one is there is no single best method for learning. So if there, I mean, this is the whole passage is kind of screaming out and saying, you know, that's not the only way. You can learn in more ways. It all, you know, motivation is one part, and the other thing, there's no one best method. So it kind of gives you on your first two sentences that, you know, it's not, it should be comprehensive. It should be more, it should have all options. Presenting all options kind of tells you there is no one single method of learning. So I'm kind of sticking to that one, but I will read out the fourth one. And says teachers should regularly change their methods. But it doesn't mention in any part in the paragraph that they should change their methods, regularly change their methods. I mean, it kind of hints that, but it doesn't say regularly change their methods, and it doesn't talk about that. So we can't really say that, you know, writer is making that point. I think what writer is trying to make a point, the main one here, is that there is no best single way method for learning. So I'll stick with that, and I'll show you. I mean, this is from Pearson and PTE, trying to tell you, how give you some explanation here why the options are incorrect or correct. So the first one, motivation is worth more than intelligence in learning. The explanation here is this response is incorrect because passage does not compare the impact of motivation and intelligence on learning. Yes, it doesn't really say which one is more. It's not comparing, and even if it actually is saying that they are both needed for learning something. Then the third one, language can be effectively learned through play. This response is incorrect because the writer uses the phrase brought into play figuratively to refer to material resources which can be used. Okay, it doesn't talk about anything about play here. This text doesn't mention a method of language learning. Play to be a method of language learning. It doesn't mention that, so we can get rid of that. This is no single best method. There is no single best method for learning. This response is correct because the writer consistently uses plurals when discussing methodology, as in presenting all options. That's what I was talking about. Presenting all options. So I can't be one option. There are more than one option. So obviously single. There's no one single best method for learning. And the methods to be employed. The methods, it's a plural again, are those considered to be most effective. This indicates there is more than one method of learning, right? Teachers should regularly change their methods. Again, this is incorrect because the passage discusses factors to consider in the selection of teaching methods, but does not address how frequently to change these methods. Okay. We'll look at the next one. Again, pause the video here, try to do it on your own, and then when you come back, I will go through with you how I will approach this. Okay, I hope you got an opportunity to do it on your own. And now let's do it together, and I'll show you how I will approach this. First, I'm going to read the prompt. Which of the following most accurately summarizes the opinion of the author in the text? So again, it's talking about the opinion of the text, and we've got 4 statements, right? We've got 4 statements here, and we will see where author's opinion, or the writer's opinion, is the most accurate. First one is he finds the weaving together of Latin mass, so weaving meaning combining Latin mass and anti-war poems to be quite effective. Latin mass and anti-war poems, their connection is quite effective. He is critical of Britain's inconsistencies as observed in the War Requiem. So, and you should know what War Requiem is. It's kind of a ceremony done when you remember the people who died in the war. So he is critical of Britain's inconsistencies. So I mean, that's what we need to look for in the passage if he's critical about that. Okay. Then he admires the War Requiem of Britain, but finds it far from perfect. So there should be an admiration of Britain's War Requiem, and I find that, but he's not really, he gives an argument opposite to that. Then that means that this option could be correct. And the last one here, he questions whether Britain's work will endure. Okay, so let's read out this passage and see if it all makes sense. Okay, in many ways, Britain's most ambitious effort in the War Requiem, in many ways, Britain's most ambitious effort in the War Requiem of 1961, a flawed but still impressive work for chorus. So he's kind of saying flawed and still impressive. I feel he's admiring, but he's finding it far from perfect. So I'm still not making any conclusions, but I kind of thinking that option number 3 could be correct, right? For chorus, soloists, and orchestra. it weaves together the traditional Latin Mass for the dead with anti-war poems by Wilfred Owen, a young officer killed in World War I. So if you look at the first option, he finds the weaving together of Latin Mass and anti-war poems to be quite effective. Well, he only talks about it weaves together the traditional. He's talking about it weaves. That is correct. That part is correct. But when it says it's quite effective, it doesn't really mention anything about how effective it is. So it doesn't really say that it's quite effective, or it doesn't point out anything about the effectiveness of this this connection. So I'm gonna say it's somewhat correct, but it's not fully correct. So I'm gonna eliminate that for now. The point of war requiem is how the words of liturgical text are reinterpreted and often rendered hollow by the realities of death and war. In this work, we see Britain's prodigal inconsistencies on display, right? In this work, we see Britain's prodigal inconsistencies on display. So he's kind of criticizing it a little bit as well. For all its problems, the War Requiem will probably survive as one of our time's most impassioned indictments of war and its heroic myth. So he is kind of admiring it. He's admiring that it will probably survive as one of our time's most impassioned indictments of war and heroic myth. He's admiring, but he's not really saying that this is perfect, because he talks about prodigal inconsistencies on display. Option number two, if you look at option number two, he is critical of Britain's inconsistencies as observed in the War Requiem. He's not really critical of that, although you can argue that he is not finding it perfect, but he's not really criticizing it. He's still saying that it's most impassioned indictment. So he's still admiring it, right? And he doesn't question whether the Britain's work will endure. That part is not anywhere in the passage. So we will kind of eliminate that, because it's not presented to us in the passage that this work will endure or not. It doesn't really say that. So we're going to read the explanations here. The first option here obviously is he finds the weaving together of the Latin Mass and anti-war poems to be quite effective. The response is incorrect. Although the passage mentions the Britain's work weaves together Latin Mass for the dead and anti-war poems, it does not comment on the effectiveness of this combination. So as I discussed earlier, it doesn't really comment on the effectiveness of this combination, right? So we'll eliminate that for that reason. He is critical of Britain's inconsistencies as observed in the War Requiem. This option is incorrect. The author recognizes inconsistencies and flaws in the work, yet still praises the War Requiem as one of our time's most impassioned indictment of war. That sentence right there, he's admiring it, so it's not fully critical. But if you think about the third sentence, third option, he admires the War Requiem of Britain, but finds it far from perfect. Why is this correct? Because the writer describes Britain's War Requiem as impressive, and it gives details of what the work accomplishes. However, the writer also describes the work as flawed. We see flawed, right? That word I was looking for. We see flawed, and it refers to the works as prodigal inconsistencies and all of its problems. All of these things are kind of saying that he's not fully satisfied that this is an amazing work. Okay. Then we have another option. He questions whether Britain's work will endure. He doesn't really question. I mean, it doesn't say anywhere in the passage. So this response is incorrect. The writer hypothesizes that the work will endure by stating the War Requiem will probably survive. It's actually the opposite of it. So he actually said that this will survive and this will endure. he doesn't really say that it will not endure, right? So it actually the opposite, so that you can eliminate that on that basis. Okay, so hope you're doing great so far. Now we're going to talk about multiple choice, multiple answer. I'll give you a little bit of intro. It's a slightly different activity from the multiple choice, multiple answer. We've got more than one option that is correct. Okay, but you have to be super careful that you can lose marks for your incorrect options. So if you selected one correct answer and you selected one wrong answer, you get 0. So you have an element of negative marking, and that's very important that you take it very seriously. If you got one correct and you're not sure about the next one, do not select any of the wrong or unsure options here. And always select at least one. If you're not sure of all of the options, select one. You can select one, but do not select one correct and one unsure one. You can lose marks. First, always read the options. Read the prompt and then read the options and note down any important words. The options are going to be long, and you can note down some of the options, some of the vocabulary or the words that you think are the keywords, and then you look for those words in the paragraph, and you can read around the important words. So the words that you might have noted as keywords in the options, you can read around, you can read before the word and after the word to kind of get the context right, and help you, and it will help you decide if the correct answer, if the answer that you're looking for is correct. All right, now I'm going to do a little bit of activity here and show you how I will take the whole multiple choice, multiple answer question and really show you the methodology that we are going to use. And please work with me and understand, how I'm going to approach this. So first of all, I will read the prompt. I'm going to read the prompt, and the prompt here says, according to the text, which of the following statements can be concluded about primary classes in the Turks and Caicos Islands? Just for a sec, think, what are the keywords in the prompt? Statements about primary classes in Turks and Caicos Islands. These are the keywords. So, and it can be reframed as well, what are the statements that are true about primary classes in Turks and Caicos Islands? But what I will be looking for in the options and also in the text is the primary classes in Turks and Caicos Islands. Okay, let's analyze some of the options given here. We've got 5 options here. So number 1 is multi-grade classes are mainly found in smaller schools. Most primary, so multi-grade classes, that's our keyword, are mainly found in smaller schools. So it might be talking about larger schools and smaller schools. We'll see that. Most primary pupils are in multi-grade classes. Most primary pupils are in multi-grade classes. So we'll see most pupils, where do they study, where do they go. Parents can choose to send their child to a multi-grade school. So we're going to talk about parents having a choice to send their child. And then most primary pupils are in mixed ability classes. So we'll have to see if something mentioned about mixed ability classes. And multi-grade classes are for the youngest 3 grades. So we'll have to see if that's true as well. Multi-grade classes, is it only available for youngest 3 grades? Okay. So now I will read, and here we'll try to understand the main gist of it and read if this all makes sense. So we're going to read the article now. The Turk and Caicos Islands are multi-island archipelago at the southern tip of the Bahamas chain, approximately 550 miles southeast of Florida. The islands are an overseas territory of the United Kingdom, although they exercise a high degree of local political autonomy. The economy of the island rests mainly on tourism, with some contribution from offshore banking and fishing. So far, we haven't had any talk about primary classes. We are looking for primary classes, right? So we haven't had anything talked about primary classes. That's our main focus here. Now it talks about primary schooling. So that's where we're getting into it. And we're going to read and we're going to pay particular attention because it's already talking about primary schooling here. So primary schooling is divided into 8 grades, with most pupils entering at the age of 4 years and 12 and leaving at 12. So they start from 4 and they leave at 12. After 2 kindergarten years, grades 1 to 6 are covered by graded curriculum in maths, language, and science that increases in difficulty as pupils get older. There is little repetition, and pupils are expected to progress through primary school in their age cohorts. At the end of the primary schooling, pupils sit an examination that serves to stream them into the secondary school setting. Primary and secondary school enrollment is virtually universal. There are a total of 10 government primary schools on the island. Of these, 7 are large enough to organize pupils into single grade classrooms. So you see multi-grade classes are mainly found in smaller groups. So far, I think single graded classroom classes are mainly found in smaller schools. That could be correct, but we'll read it on. Most pupils are in multi-grade classes. So if you think about this, there are a total of 10 primary schools on the island. Of these, 7 are large enough to organize pupils into single grade classrooms. So if 7 out of 10 schools, which are large, are offering single grade classrooms, option number 2 cannot be correct, right? Because option number 2 says most primary pupils are in multi-grade classes. So I think I can eliminate that. Parents can choose to send their child to a multi-grade. I will hold on to it because I haven't read the whole article, but I haven't come across that information yet. Most primary pupils are in mixed ability classes. I haven't talked about mixed ability classes, so we will see what's happening there. And then multi-grade classes are for the youngest 3 grades. So we haven't come across that as well. So we'll keep reading. The remaining 3 schools, because of their small pupil numbers, operate the multi-grade groupings. They serve communities with small populations whose children cannot travel to neighboring larger primary school. So now we're talking about mixed ability classes. So pupils in these schools are generally grouped by age into mixed ability classes. So it does talk about mixed ability classes. Most primary pupils are in mixed ability classes. I think that is correct information because we talk about most being in those 7 schools and the remaining 3, actually the remaining, So now we're talking about the remaining 3 schools because of their small. So we've got 2 correct options here. We've got the most primary pupils are in mixed ability classes and multi-grade classes are mainly found in small schools. So the first one, here we're going to see the first one, the remaining 3 schools, because of their small pupil numbers, operate with multi-grade groupings. Okay, so look at the first option. Multi-grade classes are mainly found in smaller schools. And it does talk about, yes, that's correct, because it says the remaining 3 schools, because of their small pupils, these are small schools, aren't they? They operate with the multi-grade groupings. They operate with the grade groupings. So that actually is correct. So I've got 2 correct options so far. I'll keep reading and see if I can get more or if I can eliminate more. They serve communities, small population, those whose children cannot travel to a neighboring larger primary school. Pupils in these classes span up to 3 grades and age groups. Right. 3 grades and age groups. We've got 3 grades. It doesn't have 1 to 6th grade or whatever. It has only 3 grades because they're multi-grade. That's what I understand. As far as classroom organization is concerned, the multi-grade and monograde classes are similar in terms of the number of pupils and the general seating arrangements, with pupils in rows facing the blackboard. There is no evidence that the multi-grade teachers operate in particularly poor environment in the Turks and Caicos Island. This is in contrast to studies conducted in other developing country contexts. So you can see that there's a lot of information, but all of your options are coming from or are presented in paragraph number 3. So that's why it's super important that you scan for the keywords from your options and look for and scan them in the paragraphs, because you will want to pay more attention to the paragraph where the information resides. So let's go to the next screen and analyze the correct and incorrect options. We've got multi-graded classes are mainly found in smaller groups. This option is correct. The first option is correct because the writer says that the most schools have single grade classrooms, and only 3 schools, because of their small pupils, operate with multi-grading. So yes, that is correct, that most multi-grade classes are found in smaller groups. That's correct. The second one, most primary pupils are in multi-grade classes. This option is incorrect because it contradicts the information in the text. Most primary pupils are in it contradicts because it says that 7 out of 10 schools, which are large schools, big schools, so most people will be in these schools, are actually in the single grade classes, right? So that has to be a contradictory, and we eliminated that just by reading that. Parents can choose to send their children to a multi-grade school. This option is incorrect because the writer does not mention whether parents have any choice about which school their children can attend. So yes, that is just by reading that, you can say that this information has not been presented to us, and we're not going to be worrying about that one. We can eliminate that. Most primary pupils are in mixed ability classes. This option is also correct because the writer states that pupils are generally grouped by age into mixed ability classes, right? And it does say that for the 7 large schools, so obviously most pupils are in the mixed ability classes, right? Multi-grade classes are for the youngest 3 grades. This option is incorrect because this information is not mentioned by the writer. It does talk about having 3 grades in the smaller group schools, but multi-grade classes, it doesn't really say that it's only available for the youngest 3 grades. There's nothing mentioned about that. So yeah, again, I just want to show this idea to you that, writing down the keywords from the options is really going to help you to scan the information in your paragraph number 3, and in paragraph 4 you don't have that information either. So, but look, this is how you would want to write them down. This is one way of writing, but you can also come up with your own keywords that you think will help you scan for the information. So here, first option, multi-grade classes. Second option, you've got multi-grade classes as a keyword. Third option, multi-grade school. 4th option, mixed ability classes. Fifth option is multi-grade classes. So most of it is about around multi-grade classes. Now here, I just want to show you how to look for a gist of a paragraph. Sometimes you will not be given options based on what are the statements that are true, but you might be presented an option. What is the opinion of the writer, or what the writer thinks about primary schooling and stuff like that. And the way to do it is basically when you read this article, and we have already done that in detail, you would come across the gist of this passage is primary schooling on Turks and Caicos Islands. Primary schooling, government primary schooling, classroom organization, etc., etc. This will be the gist for your paragraph. So if you look at the type of text, it's actually a report, right? And you reread the passage and highlight the phrases that identify or support the writer's opinion. to show that primary schooling is relatively well organized and effective in Turks and Caicos Islands. Primary and secondary school enrollment is virtually universal, serves communities with small population whose children cannot travel to a neighboring larger primary school. No evidence that multi-grade teachers operate in a particularly resource-poor environment. The tone of the text is neutral to mildly positive. If you were asked to explain the writer's opinion, this is how you would think about it. Quickly now, so it's judging you on your ability to analyze, interpret, and evaluate a short reading text on an academic subject. If you're not confident in your choice, do not select the option. You will lose your points. So do not select any option. Only select one option if you really have to guess. And it only affects your reading scores. So that's quite easy. It's similar to multiple choice single answer. It only affects your reading score. All right, let's do practice now. So this is, please pause the video here and try to do it exactly how I did the first text for you. Do it on your own, select the correct ones, and then when you come back, I will show you how I will approach this, and I will show you, what are the things I will look for, and we'll go from there. I hope you got a chance to have a go at this. Now we're going to discuss it together. So the prompt, first things first, we're going to look at the prompt. Which of the following statements about Australian Aboriginals can be supported from the text? So again, it's talking about if these statements are true, isn't it? In other words, that's what it's asking for us to do. So the first statement is, it is estimated that population of Australian Aborigines peaked at about 400,000 some 30 years before white settlement. Okay, so we're gonna read out that. There are some numbers, so we will be scanning for those numbers and identify those. Second statement is, despite being recognized internationally, the Aboriginal musical instrument, the didgeridoo, rarely plays a significant role in Aboriginal cultural ceremonies. So we'll be scanning for didgeridoo. Is it recognized internationally, and does it play significant role, or does it not play a significant role in Aboriginal cultural ceremonies? Statement number 3 is, today Aborigines comprise approximately 2% of the Australian population. So we'll see what their population is now, if it's in the text or not. Aboriginal culture is based on a belief that people, animals, and the land are integrally linked. We're gonna look at that, if their cultural beliefs. And unlike many other indigenous cultures, Australian Aborigines developed equitable relationships with colonial powers. So we have to see that as well, what their culture was when the colonial powers came in action, if they developed any relationships with the colonial powers. Okay, so those are 5 statements that we have here, and we're going to start reading. So we're going to look at the text now. Who are the Aborigines? Aborigines are Australia's indigenous people. Recent government statistics counted approximately 400,000 Aboriginal people, or about 2% of Australia's total population. Okay, just by reading the first sentence, I've got 2 options that I can work with. The first option says, it is estimated that the population of Australian Aborigines peaked at about 400,000 some 30 years ago before white settlement. So it's saying that 30 years ago, their population was 400,000. That option is wrong because it says recent government statistics counted. So recently, their population is 400,000, not 30 years ago. So I can eliminate that straight away. The other option that I get information about is today's Aborigines comprise approximately 2% of the Australian population. I'm quite lucky here. I got 2 options straight away by reading just 1 paragraph. That is correct. That is correct, because today we've got approximately 2% of Australian population that is Aborigines. All right, let's keep reading. Australian Aborigines migrated from somewhere in Asia at least 30,000 years ago. Though they comprise 500 to 600 distinct groups, Aboriginal people possesses some unifying links. Among these are strong spiritual beliefs that tie them to the land, a tribal culture of storytelling and art, and like other indigenous population, a difficult colonial history. Okay, let's read this again. Like other indigenous populations, a difficult colonial history. If you read out the option number 5, unlike many other indigenous culture, Australian Aborigines developed equitable relationship with colonial power. It kind of, I'd have to read more, but it kind of is telling me that this option could be wrong because they still had the same issues the other colonial indigenous people had when they were colonized. Okay, so this is contradictory to the passage, and we can probably eliminate it for now, but we'll have to read more information if that says that they built any equitable relationships, but I have a feeling that's not the case. Now we're going to talk about a paragraph called The Daydream. Aboriginal spirituality entails a close relationship between human and the land. Okay, so we do have a relationship talking about, if you look at option number 4, Aboriginal culture is based on a belief that people, animal, and the land are integrally linked. I think we will get some information here because talking about that relationship. Aborigines call the beginning of the world dreaming or daydream. In the daydream, Aboriginal ancestors rose from below the earth to form various parts of nature, including animal species, bodies of water. So we talked about animal here as well, and nature includes animal. So yeah, they believe that animals and the land are integrally, people, animal, and land are integrally linked. I have a feeling that's where we're getting at, but we'll keep reading the whole thing. Of nature, including animal species, bodies of water, and the sky. Unlike other religions, however, Aboriginal belief does not place the human species apart from or on higher level than nature. So it's saying that it's on the same level. Nature and human is on the same level, and nature includes animal species, bodies of water, and the sky. Okay. Aborigines believe some of the ancestors metamorphosed into nature, as in rock formation or rivers, where they remain spiritually alive. So they have been formed into rocks or rivers, and that's what they believe. So I think this belief, option number 4, kind of tells me that this is a correct statement, because that's what they believe. So I'm going to kind of stick with option number 3 and 4, and we're going to have to read option number 3. I think we're only left with option number 2. So we're going to have to read about didgeridoo, which is the next one, storytelling, art, and the didgeridoo. The oral tradition of storytelling informs Aboriginal vibrant cultural life. Song illustrates a daydream and the other tale of the land, while dances and diagrams drawn in the sand accompany oral tales. In the Northern Territory, Aboriginal art includes sculpture, bark and rock paintings, the baskets, and beadwork. Rock carvings and paintings can be found in such places in Arnhem Land, Obeah, and Noralangi. More Aborigines earn a living through selling native artworks. Okay, so we haven't seen anything about didgeridoo, so I'm interested to read the next paragraph. Aboriginal music is often recognizable for its most famous instrument, the didgeridoo. Here it is. So I think we're gonna get the information here that we are looking for. A wind instrument typically made from bamboo. It extends about 5 feet and produces a low vibrating hum. Aborigines uses didgeridoos in formal ceremonies at such events as sunsets, circumcisions, and funerals. So that cannot be correct, because if you look at option number 2, it says despite being recognized internationally, which it doesn't really mention, but I think it kind of gives you a hint. But the Aboriginal musical instruments, the didgeridoo, rarely. So that's the main main adverb here rarely plays a significant role in Aboriginal cultural, which is contradictory to the information that's given here. It says here, Aborigines use didgeridoos in formal ceremonies. Formal ceremonies, they do use it in formal ceremonies and cultural ceremonies, but in the option it says otherwise. So we can eliminate that and we can stick to option number 3 and 4. All right, let's look at some of the explanations. So the first one is incorrect because it is estimated that population of Australian Aborigines peaked at about 400,000, some 30,000 years before white settlement. This option is incorrect because 400,000 is the correct current estimated Australian Aborigine population, not 30,000 years ago. Okay, so that we can eliminate. Second option was, despite being recognized internationally, the Aboriginal musical instrument, the didgeridoo, rarely plays a significant role in Aboriginal cultural ceremonies. This one is incorrect as well because the passage says that the didgeridoo is used in formal ceremonies such as events as sunsets, circumcisions, and funerals. These are significant events in the Aboriginal culture, and this is contradictory information, so we can eliminate that. Option number 3, today's Aborigines comprise approximately 2% of Australian population. This response is correct because it accurately conveys information from the second sentence in the passage. Recent government statistics counted approximately 400,000 Aboriginal people, or about 2% of Australian population. So that's correct. That's where we get it from. This number 4, Aboriginal culture is based on a belief that people, animal, and the land are integrally linked. This is also correct because the Daydream paragraph says that the Aborigines believe that the people, animals, and land share a common ancestry. Option number 5, unlike many other indigenous cultures, Australian Aborigines develop equitable relationships with colonial powers. Well, the response is incorrect because the passage does not describe Australian Aborigines having a relationship with colonial powers as being different from those of the other indigenous cultures. Rather, the passage says that the Australian Aborigines had, like other indigenous population, a difficult colonial history. So that is contradictory information as well. All right, we're gonna move on to the next one. Again, pause the video here, try to do it on your own, and then when you come back, we are going to do it again. You might have come back now, you must have done it on your own, and hopefully the strategies that I've just discussed with you are working. Let's just do it together if you haven't done it already, and I will show you the approach, how I'm going to approach this one. So I'm going to read the question first again. Which of the following are true statements about adaptations? Option number 1. So true statements about adaptation. So we need to really look for what is adaptation, how, in what context adaptation is being described here, and what these statements are talking about adaptation. So the first one is they can be structural. And I mean, if you, all the sentences here, all the options are starting with they. So if you just replace it with adaptations, you can actually say it's all about adaptations, right? So adaptations. Adaptations can be structural, behavioral, or physiological adaptations, right? We just need to see if that's true, or it can be 3 types of them, right? Then we've got they mostly occur, or adaptations mostly occur in physical appearances or special body parts of an organism. So we have to see if that's correct as well. We'll look for physical appearance. The keyword here is physical appearance and organism. Special body parts can also be keyword here. They are new genes created to increase an organism's chance of survival. So are they new genes, or are they, what are they really to increase the organism's chance of survival? They are genes selected due to the benefits they offer in a particular environment. So we have to see if they're genes that are selected to do that, for the benefits they offer in a particular environment. And so they are created by the environment to help an organism survive in its habitat. So let's see if that's the case here as well. Let's just start reading and scan for the information that we need. So adaptations enable living organisms to cope. So living organisms, these adaptations, they enable the living organisms to cope with environmental stresses and pressures. Okay, that talks about, it helps the organisms to cope with the environmental stresses and pressures. Adaptations can be structural or behavioral. Okay, so let's look at the first option here. It says they can be structural and behavioral, but it doesn't, or physiological adaptations. So looking at this, I can probably eliminate that because it doesn't say physiological, but we'll read on if it says in the later part of the paragraph. So structural adaptations are special body parts, often organisms, that help it to survive in its natural habitat. Look at that. They are created by environment. They're not really created by environment. So I can eliminate the last option here because they're not created by the environment. They're actually the special body parts. These are special body parts of an organism. So if I look at another option, which is option number 2, they mostly occur in physical appearances of special body parts of an organism. Physical appearances that help it to survive in its habitat. I think that's not the case here. For example, skin color, shape, body covering, all of these things. Behavioral adaptations are the ways a particular organism behaves to survive in its natural habitat. So you've got behavioral adaptations, right? So those ones, structural adaptation is about the physical one, but behavioral adaptation, there is also behavioral adaptation that is not physical. So it says they mostly occur in physical. That will be wrong because it's not just the structural ones, it's the behavioral ones as well. Okay, reading on. Okay, physiological adaptations. Okay, so there are physiological adaptations as well. The systems present in an organism that allow it to perform certain biochemical reactions, for example, making venom, secreting slime, being able to keep a constant body temperature. Okay, so we come across that there's physiological adaptations as well. So option number 1 will be correct in this case because they're structural and behavioral or psychological adaptations. So we are gonna take that as correct. Number 2 cannot be correct because it talks about, mostly occur in physical appearances. It doesn't really say that so far, but we'll read on. Option number 3 is they are new genes created to increase an organism's survival. Okay, we have to read more to really see if that is making sense so far. Adaptations are traits that have been selected by natural selection. Okay, so these are selected. So there was something about selection here. So option number 4 says they are genes selected due to the benefits they offer in a particular environment. Okay, let's see if they're selected that way. Adaptations are traits that have been selected by natural selection. The underlying genetic basis for adaptive trait did not arise as a consequence of the environment. Okay, so it's not as a consequence of the environment. Genetic variant pre-existed and was subsequently selected because it provided the bearer of that variant some advantage. So it does provide you the advantage that they are selected, they are gene selected due to the benefits they offer in a particular environment. That does say that. It says that it gives us some advantage. So I think they are selected for that reason. I think option number 4 for me looks correct. Number 3, there are new genes created to increase an organism's chance of survival. It doesn't really mention that they're created. It doesn't really say that did not arise as a consequence of environment. So they're not really created. So I think I can eliminate option number 3, option number 5, they are created by the environment to help an organism survive. They're created by the environment. They're not created by the environment. It says did not arise as a consequence of the environment. The genetic code pre-existed, was subsequently selected. They were selected. They were not created by the environment. So it's contradictory information. So we can eliminate 5. I will stick with 1 very, very strongly, and I will stick with number 4. All right, let's read the explanation here. All right, the first one is correct because the passage describes, the first one is, they can be structural, behavioral, or psychological, physiological adaptations. The passage describes different types of structural, behavioral, and physiological adaptations. So it's completely written in the paragraph, very straightforward. Number 2, they mostly occur in physical appearances of special body parts of an organism. This response is incorrect because it makes a statement that was not made in the text. So it doesn't really say, yeah, but it kind of gave us, physical appearance. It does talk about that, but it doesn't really say, the passage says that there are structural and behavioral adaptation, but does not say which occur more or what proportion of each are present in the organism. So yeah, it didn't say that structural ones are more, mostly occur. Right, so that's also one thing that you should keep in mind here. Number 3, there are new genes created to increase an organism's chance of survival. This response is incorrect because the passage says the genetic variant pre-existed, but does not discuss the creation of the new one. So it doesn't really say that there's nothing mentioned about creation of new genes. So I can eliminate that on that basis. They are genes selected due to the benefits they offer in a particular environment. That is correct because they are selected. This option is correct. The passage says that the genetic basis for the adaptive trait was selected because it gave an advantage to the organism that it possesses it. So it does give you an advantage, benefits they offer, right? Option number 5, they are created by the environment to help an organism survive in its habitat. This response is incorrect because it conflicts with the information given in the passage. Like I said, contradictory information. The text says that genes for adaptation did not arise as a consequence of the environment. Rather, it pre-existed, right? So, few points I want to make about multiple choice, single answer, multiple choice, multiple answer. The most important thing is you need to understand the prompt. If people, I think the problem that most people come across is that they don't read and they don't make an effort to understand the prompt, and they try to read the information without any context. If you're trying to do that, you're just going to waste time and you will read it over and over and it will not make sense to you. But if you want to be focused on what information exactly you're looking for, you need to understand the prompt. There could be questions with what, who, you're looking for a person, what you're looking for a thing, when you're looking for a time, where you're looking for a place. So all of these things you should have a tunnel vision to look for things because you will be specifically looking for information that is needed. There could be questions with complete the sentence. It is also asking the similar kind of questions. What type of questions, but you're completing the sentence and you're looking for that, we are scanning for the particular vocabulary. Okay. And then another thing that I want to talk about is the multiple choice, multiple answer. It can talk about a lot of statements. You read the information. So reading the options is super important as well, and understanding them. And if you want to write the keyword from the options, you can write those options in your erasable booklet, and you can look for those words, those keywords in the passage if that helps. Okay, so understanding the options as well is super important. Now, if you don't understand the options, you will not scan the information properly. Okay, so these are 2 tips that I will leave you with. It's super important that you understand the prompt and you do a lot of exercise and you also perfect understanding the options and then do that. Lastly, I would make this very, very clear. It's an academic test, and you guys, especially the people who don't read, reading is not harder than speaking or listening or writing. They all are challenging at the same level. But the problem where people think reading is so hard is because you don't really practice reading in your daily life. I mean, a lot of people these days with social media and everything, people have stopped reading stuff after YouTube. You know, people are just watching stuff and doing that, and we're not really used to reading anymore. So the people who find reading the most difficult is because lack of reading. So start reading the stuff. Go on internet, read a lot of articles and science articles. Find out very good, interesting articles about history. Read history articles, and you will come across a lot of vocabulary that you might get in your reading test. Okay, so that's going to help. And also, one point I want to make is that you need a lot of practice. Before the test, at least 100 questions of multiple choice, single answer, and multiple choice, multiple answers you need to do before you go into the real test. If you do that, and these questions can repeat. So if you get a similar question in your PT, you will be able to do it. And how I showed you how I'm using my methodology, use it in the same way. If you can do it 100 times, your mind is very much ready for the real test. All right, I wish you all the best, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Take care and happy studying.